Hello students, in this video we're going to look at page 2 and page 3 of our book, and we're going to look at some language scenarios that can help you in our class. Very common student-teacher speaking scenarios, and maybe some vocabulary to help you if you have questions in the class or if you have problems learning language. So we have here is 4 different scenarios with some language, and we're going to look at the scenario first and then practice which piece of language is appropriate or helpful in a moment. Okay, so first we have page 2, but we have the first scenario here, and we have the teacher and the student, and the student asks, how do you say this in English? So they said, how do you say this in English? And the teacher says city, city. Okay, and the student says, how do you spell city? How do you spell? And the teacher says C-I-T-Y. So this scenario is very common. A student will ask, what is this? Or how can you say this? And the teacher would say the word, and then he would say, how can you spell it? How do you say first? How can you spell it second? The second scenario of teacher and student, and the student says, I am sorry, I don't understand. What does city mean? So how do you spell city? What does it mean? And the teacher says, it means, so you can say a city means a big town, or a place where many people live, or a place with many big buildings. You can give an example. The teacher can say a city is like Gwangju City or Seoul or Busan. A city is a big place with many people. What does it mean? Okay, so 2 common questions. How can you say? How do you spell? What does it mean? And our next scenario, we have, how do you pronounce? Pronounce means how to say, okay? So for example, how do you pronounce this word? And the teacher would say very slowly, city, city, 2 syllables. Even though it's a C, it's not kitty, Anya. It would say city as an S sound, S sound. So S-I-T-Y, no, C-I-T-Y, but the sound, pronounce city, city. Can you repeat that? And we say, that's one. Okay, can you repeat? Say it again. City, city. Okay, so very common. The students say, how can you say? How do you pronounce? Can you repeat it again? Okay. And number 4, is this correct? Correct means, is it okay? Is it right? Student says, I don't know. But you can ask the teacher. Say, teacher, is this correct? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Okay, so once again, we have different scenarios. You could say, what is this? How can you spell it? How can you pronounce it? Or excuse me, what does it mean? How can you pronounce it? Can you repeat that? And is it correct, or is this correct? All right, different scenarios. So on our next page, we have some scenarios we can practice with this. So we have some vocabulary on page 3, up here. And we have, how do you pronounce this word? What does repeat mean? Is this correct? Can you repeat that? How do you say this in English? What does that mean? And how do you spell it? So we're going to look at the scenario and then choose expression to go there. Okay, so for example, the first scenario, let's bring this down slightly. First scenario here. Perfect. And the student says, student teacher, and the student says, how do you pronounce this word? Okay, and earlier the word was city, but now different word. Okay, so how do you pronounce this word? The student says, how do you pronounce this word? This word, tablet. Tablet, like a computer. Tablet. Okay, tablet. And she might say, okay, the next question is, how do you pronounce this word? This word, tablet. And he says, this is a tablet. So the question here would, what does that mean? So how do you pronounce this word? Teacher says tablet. Next question, and would say, what does that mean? Okay, so we can use this expression here. Excuse me, I'll just put this here. Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? Okay, so what does that mean here? Next one, number 2. All right, the student is holding keys. The teacher says keys, keys. Okay, so what is the question that the student is asking? You could say, how do you pronounce this? No. You could say, what does repeat mean? No. But how about this? How do you say this in English? In English, 영어, you'd say, how do you say this in English? You'd say, how do you say this in English? Keys. Okay, so the student holding up keys say, how do you say this? So this time we'd say, how do you say this in English? Okay, here, how do you say this in English? And the teacher says keys, but then it says sure, keys. So the next question is, how do you say this in English? Keys. Can you repeat that? One more time. Can you repeat that? All right, so can you repeat that here? Sure, or yes, keys. Okay, so once again, how do you say this in English? Keys. Can you repeat that? Sure, keys. Okay, very common in English class, asking the word. How do you say this? Can you repeat that? So let's move down, okay, to our second 2 scenarios. Now we have 3 and 4. It means say it again. Now it means, what does it mean? It means. What does it mean? It means. So if we're looking for something like say it again, we go up here. What does repeat mean? So we can use this expression. What does repeat mean? What does it mean? And the teacher says, it means say it again. Repeat, repeat, say it again. And can you, R-E-P-E-A-T, question, can you spell that? Okay, so can you spell it here? This one here. Can you spell it? Okay. What does repeat mean? It means say it again. Can you spell it? R-E-P-E-A-T. Okay. And final scenario, scenario 4, excuse me. And the answer is yes, it is. Good work. Thank you. So yes, it is. We said about this scenario, what can we choose? We could say, is this correct? Okay, so the student is writing in the book, say, excuse me, is this correct? And the teacher can say, yes. Excuse me, is this correct? Yes, it is. Good work. Thank you. Okay. So once again, these are just scenarios, 1, 2, 3, 4, these scenarios and vocabulary that maybe can help you in the class when you're interacting with your teacher or speaking to your teacher when you need help, ask for a question, for understanding, for pronunciation, for spelling, anything. And we practice these scenarios here, but also in class every day we can use these scenarios too, okay?